An excerpt from chapter 16 leading into chapter 17 from the novel The Perfect Escape, a creative discovery of love. The speeding portal scorched across heaven's atmosphere and brushed low above the very gates of heaven. The whirlwind of light sent all of St. Peter's paperwork fluttering. St. Peter screamed and buried his head against his desk. Some angels started gathering the files of the saved and unsaved as another angel redirected the long line of those about to be judged. Lifting his head, St. Peter addressed the never-ending line. All right, let's start over from the top. Number 200,075, would you please step forward? Down on earth, in the isolated part of Norway, a family of farmers who still followed the old Norse religion spotted the blazing portal and prepared for the end of the world in the final battle between good and evil. The portal bore a strange resemblance to the Rainbow Bridge being breached, if one believes in such things. Meanwhile, back in the portal, between what those saw in heaven and on earth, Leonardo and Michelangelo were thinking to themselves that maybe the whole escape had been a bad idea to begin with. The roaring enclosure of light made their entire bodies shake more rapidly than Carmen Miranda's hips if she were dancing on hot coals. Then out of nowhere, Michelangelo made out a voice. You know she loved you. Who loved me, Leonardo? Asked Michelangelo, coping with the vibrations in a fetal position. What? I don't know what you're talking about, said Leonardo, with his coat drawn above his head. Then Leonardo heard his own voices. You know, they loved you. This is no time to be sentimental, Michelangelo, said Leonardo. I didn't say anything, responded Michelangelo. The portal then seemed to increase its speed. They kept hearing the voices as their bodies trembled, but were no longer bothered by them. They were frightened beyond belief. And at times like this, it is good to know somewhere, someplace, someone loved you. Chapter 17. Everything was dark. Michelangelo felt similar to when he had slipped on the scaffold while painting the Sistine Chapel. Slowly he made out figments of light, which spun in a blurred view of his surroundings. Round and round the images went, refusing to stand still. After a few minutes, he could make out two distinct viewpoints converging into a whole. This is what he saw. It was evening. Michelangelo was on all fours, and in front of him were tall buildings of unfamiliar architecture, separated by what appeared to be a canal. It could not be the Arno River, and it could not be Florence. Then his nose was introduced to his new environment. Leonardo came flying into his backside, sending him headfirst into the hard pavement. The long trails of Leonardo's clothing had snagged in the now vanished portal, which had sent him flying into Michelangelo upon their release. Son of a bitch, yelled Michelangelo. Damn it, yelled Michelangelo. That is very strange, thought Michelangelo. Michelangelo stood up and said, shit. He definitely wasn't in heaven anymore. Before he could usher another word of vulgarity to confirm his assumption, he heard Leonardo do it for him. Oh fuck, I'm drowning. The non-athletic Leonardo was drowning in the canal. Even if he had been physically capable of swimming, his overbearing attire would have prevented it. Michelangelo dove into the canal, and without much help from the frantic Leonardo, was able to drag him up to the safety of the sidewalk. My clothes, complained Leonardo. My nose, ached Michelangelo. The pain was more severe than either had felt in a while, mentally and physically. They surely weren't in Florence, but where were they? You overgroomed scatterbrain. This isn't Florence, scolded Michelangelo. I must have miscalculated my latitude and longitudes, but heaven is a far distance from earth, and the slightest veer in direction would have caused this to happen. By the looks of things, I would say Earth, 21st century, Venice. All in all, a success, said Leonardo, pleased with himself as always. Well, at least modern technology has granted them a method with which to combat that god-awful smell, said Michelangelo. The two freedmen had made their way up the sidewalk that ran parallel to the canal when they noticed an oncoming group of women moving rapidly towards them. This entourage was made up according to the basic principle of dichotomy. It consisted of 8 overweight women being led by a thin, gorgeous woman, though a Northern Renaissance artist operating under a different canon would have said it was 8 attractive women being led by a sickly, thin woman. The basic principle of dichotomy states that in order to judge, one must be presented with 2 different sides. This in turn will intensify the sides depending on the degree of separation between them. In art, for example, if one wants a warm color to appear warmer, then one surrounds it with cool colors. Hence, attractive women surrounded by less attractive women will seem even more attractive. This principle is nothing new and has been practiced for some time, much to the demise of many great but short men. The major downfall of Napoleon and Alexander the Great wasn't a bad strategy, as many history books will like one to believe. In an effort to make themselves seem taller, they would surround themselves with generals shorter than themselves. This created a problem. During the heat of battle, their diminutive generals couldn't be seen giving orders because of their height, and the brilliant strategies of their high commanders were squandered. The equally short Hitler didn't have this problem. He was just a loony, a wannabe artist who created a horrible performance named World War II. Michelangelo and Leonardo ducked to the side of the buildings that pressed against the walkway and the canal, barely avoiding the oncoming freight train of the principle of dichotomy. They were less fortunate with the second wave coming around the corner. This horde was far less intelligent and very much drunk. This group was incapable of understanding the principle of dichotomy, even if they were sober, as much as they noticed or understood why women painted their nails. They were a group of men out on the town and only had the group of women on their mind which just went by. This train had tunnel vision, and the tunnel didn't have enough room for them and the artists in the middle of their tracks. Leonardo and Michelangelo were trampled by the band of Casanovas. After recovering from the train wreck of humanity, they felt the need for a well-deserved drink and stopped into what seemed a tavern.